All right, everybody, welcome to KC Happy Hour. Wanted to say first and foremost, as always, thank you guys so much for tuning in here to the live show. Let me adjust myself just a little bit. Of course, we've got our normal cast and crew is here joining us. We got a lot of topics I really want to get into tonight. We've got the standard bit of news that we normally like to talk about, give you a little bit of an update of what racing went on over the weekend, what kind of racing is coming up here. Obviously, last week we talked and debrief the SCUSA and Rock opening weekends. They've got weekends coming up here in February, but last weekend we had a race going on. This upcoming week there's a race out on the West Coast going on, and everything across the country now. It's that time of year here in January where we're finally starting to see the schedules, the track locations, everything else here for events get publicized for regional and club racing as everything starts to kick off. On the northern side, those guys will get started with club racing at the end of March into April. On the southern side, some of the Florida tracks will start putting on races. Some Texas tracks have already gotten underway. Out in Southern California, out in Arizona, we'll get running here at the end of January, if not already, and into the year. So we want to talk about all that out of the news that came out this week, which we'll get to. I wanted to break down and really use this show less so much to cover the news side of karting that we always end up covering. But I wanted to talk a lot about stuff in the sport and not just pile on negativity or get into a bit of an echo chamber. I want to make sure that this show continues to be a really good discussion for growth in this sport, for growth what we have here with Kart Chaser, and for growth with karting in general. So, of course, here, my name's Xander Clements as your host. We've got Ryan Norberg here joining the show. He was at a race over the weekend. He'll help us break it down a little bit. Brandon Jarsakrak is joining as well. We've got the rest of some of our regulars here. Paulie Massimino is with us, and special guest here for tonight to help me break down some of the regional racing going on and club racing, support a guy who's been in the industry for, I wouldn't say too long. That's a negative thing. But Dan Schlosser joins us. Dan, of course, thanks for joining the show, buddy.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's go over first and foremost the news or the bit of racing we had over the weekend. First and foremost, we had the RTX Winter Trophy that got underway over in Orlando. It is the first of a 2-weekend 4-round championship for the RTX guys. That is the Southern importer of the Rotax engines. Ryan was there over the weekend. He was an ambassador, got his commentating chops in over the week. They had rain. They had honestly about as hard promotion as you can do with not a big base to pull from for the engine in the state and in the southern region as those guys get going. Ryan, first of all, those guys put in a lot of effort. They got Rubens Barrichello there and his sons. Antonio Pizzoni came and ran. They brought over the RTX announcer, Mr. Rotax over. He was on a show earlier today on eKarting News. Ryan, talk to me your thoughts here through the event, at least a little bit first.
Well, I thought they did a pretty good job. Considering the circumstances, they had, 60, I think it was like 60 drivers. So I think they put on a good show. Every class had around, I think the minimum class had like 8 guys. So I think overall, every time there was on the racetrack, there was a good amount of drivers on the track. So it wasn't like you weren't racing. And majority of the drivers there, had good racing other than Junior, where Jorge Ortiz just kind of checked out on everybody. The rest of the fields are pretty good. It was pretty entertaining racing, even in the rain. They did a good job getting tires to everybody, and everybody was able to make it out there on the track. So yeah, it was a fun event. It was cold and it was wet for a period of time, but overall it was a pretty good event, and they did a pretty good job putting on that series. And I hope Rotax comes back a little bit. I miss the smell. I miss the engines. They're good engines. So I kind of hope they come back a little bit.
Yeah, did you end up getting what was a total entry number count on the weekend? Because I think that's it's going to be a little bit skewed because they only run so many classes, right? I think they only had 6 or 7. They had the Tillotsons come in, and then they had the 5 or 6 single speed classes they have, right?
Yeah, it was the standard thing. They just didn't have DD2, which you normally don't get that much in the States anymore. anyways. So I didn't really expect them to have that, but they had, I think it was roughly 60 drivers with the LO206 guys. So, I mean, it's pretty decent turnout. I mean, considering Rotax is starting over basically, you know, in the States and in Florida. So, you know, with such a strong rock presence there, and Miami's a big presence in Florida. I mean, I have 60 guys at the first one. It's not bad. I think they did a pretty good job. Like I said, putting the whole event on. And I mean, everybody I talked to was having a good time, you know, other than it just being cold. It was pretty entertaining.
Dan, you've been, even through the last few years when you were working with Luca Mars, always made sure to try and get out to the ticket races so you guys could try and get over to the Rotax Ground Finals. I know you've been there a lot, and I wanted to give you the chance to talk because the four of us here and the rest of the guys we've had on the show have talked almost to death some of the different series and motors and stuff to the U.S. I know you're a big fan of what they do in the motor and what it did for the sport and the Grand Finals. Can you kind of elaborate a little on that?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of any of the Rotax product, the events that we've been to. Certainly, I think there's maybe a little bit lacking without having a national final like happened last year. But there's something to be said for these regional pockets that they're doing. Now they have a south and a west and a northeast, I believe. And while I'm going to say it might not result in the best overall team that we're sending to Grands, it's not truly like a big national event with a big turnout and taking the best of the best. It is certainly growing the presence, that more people are interested in those little regional pockets than would have been if there was just a single national, because I think the last one was a foot race, and it wasn't that, there was maybe 90 to 100 carts there total for that one. So, I don't think it's a bad concept with the regionals. Hopefully they continue to grow with it.
Yeah, and that's going to be the big focal point of this show, right? There's other news that came out over the course of the week. We had, let me see if we've got it pulled right here. Yes, so big news out of the week on the series side that came out on the four-cycle side. WK announced that they're going to be doing a two-cycle 206 only series. That's not major news for us. We actually talked about it because we got kind of a leak on it a little bit back at the end of the Maxxis Sprint Series finale, which I think their Grand Nationals, if I'm not mistaken, was the first week of November 2021. It finished off their season, and that had kind of been the counterpart to CKNA, and even before the CKNA South Series going, they had launched that program about a year or two after the conclusion of WK Gold Cup, and it just kind of catered to the remaining 40 to 70 drivers that would run that four-cycle only series. And for a background for a lot of our viewers that don't know too much on the WK Gold Cup history, truthfully, it was a very southeastern-based four-stroke program. WK, obviously, since its inception, has been more East Coast than West Coast. And when it was big, it was a 2 or 3-tiered engine program that had both more of an open engine builder class and then also had kind of an entry-level engine. And it was a four-cycle independent pyramid and served to that group. And so where, even we touched on it a little bit last week with our 206 controversy, where a lot of that stems from is there was a very independent, their bodywork was separate for a long, long time. The seats were different. They would run the lay-down seats, and that kind of progression began in the 90s. And I wouldn't say late 80s, but at least into the 90s, they started leaning the seats back a little bit more. They started running more of the oval-style bodywork because almost all of oval karting in the U.S. runs four-cycle engines outside of the Unlimited All-Stars that will run two-cycle stuff. So there was a lot of cross back and forth between the oval side, the dirt oval side, the asphalt oval side into the four-cycle WK Gold Cup program. And just, for a variety of different reasons, it dwindled down. And now you see the remnants of those guys running in 206 races across the country, and they're yearning for that major platform that was never at the level of a SCUSA Supernats or anything, but it was a lot bigger than anything else had been. And the CKNA Grands have kind of taken that over, but it's still a spec format with what all that's left is that bottom level class. So where you've got your former four-cycle pro, both chassis, you could say pro at least. I would say at least a level above your entry-level guys, however you want to word it. Guys that were in that series, are now just running 206 racing. Corey Tolles, Colin Warren-esque guys, and a lot less of them. Going back on the upper ages, you have Sean Meyer, who was a mainstay in WK Gold Cup for Coyote for the longest time. It was a big name you'd see winning all the Gold Cup events, even to the final years. Obviously, Gary Lawson, he's involved with Comet full-time on everything Comet does, which puts him at a lot of two-cycle events. And he'd been at two-cycle events and around the sport forever, but he'd also go and run at the Gold Cup races all the time. And so these guys that were foreign pros are now in what has all that's left is that entry-level class with 206. And so they deserve the respect. I mean, these are top guys that run that enjoy those different types of motors, enjoy the atmosphere. It's a different culture, and that's where 206 being an entry-level platform, but now has some guys from the Gold Cup kind of step above classes running in it, runs into this issue at every single event where it gets treated like an entry-level program at a lot of places if it's not on an independent series, even though there's still good drivers in the class. And so it's in this weird kind of war with itself because it's just not big enough to split two. But that was the comment section. And so the main reason that I wanted to talk in this show was about how the comments on this there were a lot of good points, but there was obviously a lot of negativity with it. CKNA South is looking up for its second season. It's got a lot of momentum for it because it kind of had a good break-even opening year. So it's already covering this kind of Southeast Florida, Florida, especially Central and North Florida region, into Georgia, into the Carolinas. They're going to NOLA this year. So they've got the Southeast going, right? And so the initial feedback was like, there's not a need for a 206 spec series in the North Georgia, South Florida area. If you look at what the press release entails, right? This is a 3-race schedule that goes after the conclusion of the CKNA South Series, goes to the Charlotte Motor Speedway, goes to Barnesville, Georgia at Lamar County Speedway, and goes to Jacksonville, Florida, which Barnesville and Jacksonville were longtime mainstays in Gold Cup. Charlotte held Gold Cup races on its old deal. And it's a standard Friday practice, Saturday, Sunday race, 2 races per weekend. But, I'm not going to lie, and everyone here, all of our regulars are going to know, because I always joke and I rag on WKA, right? I mean, but the reason I do, and the reason I've gone at them, is I've tried to make it so that it's not solely negative, because it's very easy to just pick on an organization, just to pick on them for making the wrong move. But it's because they have a platform that could absolutely grow this sport and fill the holes that are fill holes, gaps in the sport. And instead, this series doesn't really fill any holes. It takes over where Maxxis was, but Maxxis kind of spun its wheels at 60 entries for nearly 4 seasons with the same group of drivers. But now a lot of them are already starting to run that CKNA South program. So yeah, you've got more races for those guys to run, but I mean, then where do they, then that's a full schedule, plus hopefully for them to go home and run their club schedule. Because it's a regional. That means the guys that run regionals, they don't run a full season of that. They'll either run regional national or they'll run regional club. So as we get into the show, and I spent a little bit breaking down and a little less time than what I wanted, but made a quick kind of breakdown of the overall map of the U.S. And why I have Dan in here, why I have the rest of our guys in here, is I wanted to go over, the map of the country and what the country currently looks like with everything. First and foremost, right, as we break down the country by region and what series are currently in it. So let me go ahead here. Obviously, we've got, the continental 48 states that we've got in the country. Then we go to the first region, and then from there, I'm going to skip to the end. The regions that are colored in currently have regional championships and, to some degree, a good amount of karting health in them. Specifically, first we'll go here to the Georgia and the Carolinas section, which arguably can pulls a little bit from Tennessee, and you could kind of group it in with Florida, but Florida's got enough going on its own. I wanted to separate them out. Brandon and Paulie, you guys can attest to this, because you guys have to tell your guys at GoPro club races all the time that running at that club race is a regional level event. It's a 200 entry race almost every single time that we go there. For all intents and purposes, the Southeastern Regional is a GoPro Motorplex karting challenge for every class. And then on top of that, now you've got this 206 only series that is arguably going to be less competitive than those GoPro club races. There's enough tracks in this region that it could host a regional championship, but there's no promoter that's necessarily gone into this region to do that properly. The only guy that would really have the means to do it is Eric Jones and the group at GoPro Motorplex. But the reason it hasn't is for a variety of reasons. And the main thing is that there's no point for them to take their program that is home at GoPro, where they've got the full pie there, and go to these tracks that currently are budding but don't have any value, right? It would be a one-sided discussion, or or one-sided agreement because GoPro is pulling 200 entries. Carolina Motorsports Park in Kershaw, South Carolina used to be a major club, has since gone under new ownership. They're investing a lot. They're wanting to do some races this year, could get bigger. And then you go over to Atlanta Motorsports Park, which is now pushing over 100 entries on average for its club series. Granted, the top guys from Atlanta Motorsports Park are used to going to GoPro for the regional, but if a regional did go to AMP, the parking could probably sustain about 125 entries. But again, that's another issue they'd run into is if they tried to bring a regional down there, they're struggling for space, and they're working on that with some paving projects and so on and so forth. That covers the Southeast region. You skip ahead here to the Northeast. The Northeastern region right now has the Gear Up F Series, which has now just dialed itself back to running pretty much in New York. And then the other round, I believe, is going to be in Englishtown, New Jersey. Brandon, can you correct me on that? I think that's it, right? They're just running those two.
Yeah, I think
New Jersey Motorsports Park, not Englishtown.
No, I'm pretty sure it's at Englishtown.
You think so?
I think so, but I'm not 100% sure.
Right. So it's
that
one
might
of those
be
two
his state races.
Yeah. In any case, for one of those two deals here, there is a lot of and we're going to show this at the very end of all the tracks in the U.S., but it's a relatively untapped region. It's going to get a little more help in the bottom two states. They're Pennsylvania and New Jersey, with the Stars Championship Series going over there this year. So the Stars guys, that's a wide open pocket, that whole area. And that was one of the comments. There's a lot of shorter tracks up in that region that Maxis even tried to touch into a little bit. A few regional series would try to go there. Thank you here, Tony Lishek. So Gear Up is going to be New Jersey Motorsports Park and New York Race Complex. Used to touch Englishtown, used to touch Pittsburgh International Race Complex. It's kind of dialed back a little bit this year. But there's just not a lot. So the Stars guys can go up in there. But there's also, like I said, there's Sandy Hook Speedway, Nicholson Speedway. There's even more, Brandon. You could probably help me out and name a few more of these. But there's a lot of tracks in that region. And you grew up out there. That's from Philly, right? So, there's a lot of tracks. Not all of them could host a 200-entry GoPro Karting Challenge level regional or even an F-Series. There's a mix that could have a CKNA South or WK206 only smaller track regional championship, state championship.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem with that region is like New Jersey Motorsports Park is like one of the only facilities that could hold event more than probably 150 entries. Englishtown could too, but the facilities they haven't really kept up with the track. It got real bumpy and everything like that, so they won't really be able to do anything there. Pittsburgh's obviously a very good track. I wish we would go back there a lot more, but other than that, there's some tracks there's a track in Massachusetts, F1 Boston, but it has such bad noise ordinance that it's hard for us to go there, and they don't have very good parking there either. OVRP is a really good track, but again, parking there is kind of hard. It's good for the regional series, like when we go there for Rotax, do a good job with that. And other than that, that's kind of all the tracks I know.
Dan, you were not many people know also beyond your ability as a coach and tuner and shop and team owner. You're obviously still based up in with your stuff helping out the Pittsburgh club, but you ran the club at Pittsburgh when it was massive, right? And so even beyond regional series, it's kind of always a chicken or the egg type of debate of whether or not, you need a regional to grow the clubs or vice versa. The clubs need to be big enough to sustain a regional, but you know what it takes to build a club. And there's just a lot of love that the markets are there. The facilities are there at a handful of tracks up in the Northeast. If there was support there and guys came in, that could very quickly go back to a massive region with a lot of very healthy clubs.
Yeah. And like right now it's one thing on that map that's maybe a little bit off is I would probably equate Western PA more as a Great Lakes kind of track or area, with pit race. But what we kind of tie ourselves into is the 6 or 7 tracks that are in Ohio already, and the 2 that are in Michigan, and it's really healthy there right now, but it's not what it was back when we had our club feeding Great Lakes Sprint Series. We used to, our Great Lakes Sprint Series events back then were 200, 225 entries for a regional, and and I think that's lacking right now. Buckeye does an interesting job, but they're an open tire rule. It's a little bit kind of Wild Westy. That that area there could have been really ripe and extend it, into, like you said, there's 3 tracks in Lower Maryland now, or in Upper Maryland now. So there that Great Lakes into the Northeast could have been a prime spot there that's really underserved by CKNA, and really Maxis didn't dabble in there too much either at the time. So that would have seemed to me to be a great opportunity for WKA to try something originally through there, rather than, like you said, tackle the Southeast states.
Yeah, I mean, so let's keep going here. Good comment in by Paul Hart, and going over, how he, again, like, just a great point that, if we could get everyone in the Northeast together, I mean, that's a huge spot. You go up, like Brandon said, Oakland Valley Raceway Park has a really healthy club. The tag classes there are almost always 20 to 30 deep. Brandon, you've worked there for Mike Doty. You guys get 25, 30 guys under the tent. I mean, it's a massive operation, but again, that's a very healthy club. Obviously, it's not a New Jersey Motorsports Park $1 billion, $1 million, $100 million facility, but it's run by Tim Hannon, who loves go-karting. There's shops around that have budded up, which the shops will naturally bud up as the club grows. There'll be more guys that'll get into the sport. Dan, you can echo me on this as well. As the club gets going, the shops will start to grow. I mean, even in Pittsburgh, you've seen more and more guys it starts with helping out a buddy, at the racetrack. And then he's like, here, let me give you some beer money. And then another buddy tells you, oh, he knows what he's doing. And then you get 2, and then you get 3, and you're like, oh, maybe I'll get into this business. And then you get fully in. And as the club grows, I mean, GoPro Motorplex is a fantastic example as well. Newcastle Motorsports Park, a great example of where they put the track in, the club grew, the shops gravitate there, or they pop up there out of nowhere. So it starts with some love at the club level, at the regional level, and and however way in it. But I mean, there's so many tracks in that region. That is a massively untapped region in the U.S. And the reason why, again, I wanted to have this show is go look. Like, I'm not just going to rag on WK for making a series to try and pick drivers where there's already drivers and go to tracks that are already visited and just be negative. I want this show for everyone tuning in to understand there are so many pockets of this country. We're only a couple regions in right now. I've still got more to go, that are heavily undertapped with a lot of facilities and a lot of potential. The next one we'll go to here, obviously, is the Midwest Great Lakes region. And this doesn't even cover all the tracks. Like Dan said, you'd group a lot of Western Pennsylvania into this region. On the far right there is Ohio. Ohio has the Buckeye State Karting Challenge run by Scott Benton. Like Dan said, it's kind of a Wild West with the open tire rule. The entry fees, they're just starting to up them a little bit as it becomes a legit operation. So drivers in the Buckeye Karting Challenge, if you see those entry fees go up a little bit year after year, please don't rip them down or don't stop running there, because it's needed. They're a little bit under where they probably should be. But that's a series that's pulling over 100 entries, and it's sometimes 40-plus go-karts and 206 in just Ohio for the tracks out there. You have a bunch of tracks in Ohio. You've obviously got Indiana with Newcastle Motorsports Park hosts national-level races, but Whiteland Raceway Park has a budding club. Go over to Illinois. You've got places like Norway with Concept Haulers Motor Speedway. You've got Springfield, Illinois. This region also has the Route 66 Sprint Series. This region's obviously the host of the original CKNA/206 Cup regional program that's budded and budded and budded. They've got their satellite CKNA South, but this is your CKNA North region here. There are a lot of series. It seems a little bit oversaturated. I definitely wouldn't advise any promoter to start a series in the Midwest, but there's so much racing going on that if a track gets built or if a club wants to try and grow, there are plenty shops, plenty promotions, plenty of racing going on up there that it will do well. There's obviously the Ohio Motorsports Park track coming up in Cleveland that's set to break ground, hopefully later, summer, fall of 2022, which is awesome. That's going to be a world-class facility. Sean Bailiff with the guys at the Motorsports Country Club of Cincinnati are upgrading their facility. They want to get some national dates there. That whole region, Joseph Rapp, yes, 61 Cartway, Ohio, Iowa. Sorry, deserves some love. I don't have Iowa in there. I apologize to my Iowans, but that's another track that's hosted CKNA 206 Cup races. It has a nice growing club there. Obviously, big Margay presence. Autobahn in Chicago, Illinois, Missouri. I put that on there to make sure that we've got Missouri and Arkansas. That area obviously served with St. Louis with TNT Cartways with Terry Trader's group, OVK at Camden, Ohio. I mean, this is just a hotbed in everything here. There are so many racetracks in this area. Sorry, I got the wrong count over. Justin did 50 state racing challenge. There's a lot. There's a lot of racing. If you need to cross these states off and a few more in that region, which I didn't fully color in, there's a lot. But there's a lot of good stuff in that region because those clubs are healthy for the most part. There's a few smaller tracks that aren't as good because there's so much racing. Gateway, Abram Racing, great point. But there is a lot of racing in this region. We go back out here. Now let's go down to the Southwest. So, Paulie, you're headed out this way. Let's give you a chance to talk. You haven't been out there before. Look up. We're on TV, Paulie.
Sorry, I was falling asleep.
No. All right, we're kicking Paulie off the show for the third week in a row. He's done. Southwest. California honestly deserves its own region, truthfully. And I've got a West Coast buddy of mine who is going to be joining us in just a moment. I just need to find a way to get him on in here. But I'll get that on in here. I'm not going to go over Cali just yet here, so we'll just take a moment. We've got the Pacific Northwest as well. That's helped by the newly renamed Pad Holder Cup, was ICP Cup, was Gold Cup, was a region formerly sold even into southwestern Canada with the SCUSA Pro Kart Challenge that was originally run by Mike Brellison. Brellison Performance Group's obviously based up out of here. Bunch of great racetracks in this region. It's relatively served by the Pad Holder Cup, but there's club racing up there. But the point at the end of this, as we go here, we've got a couple more. We got Utah and Colorado. Both kind of have state championships in a way. Utah with Utah Motorsports Campus, the only real racetrack in Utah, has a budding club with a lot of support. Couple shops out there. In the Colorado Karting Tour, we've had Eric Gunderson on. That's a state that has actually a surprisingly amount of tracks for the size and population, like Eric talked about. For them getting over 100 entries in that single state series that really only pulls from inside of Colorado is pretty impressive. So there's already one promotional group there, and there's the Rockies and a few other championships that try to go in that way. And kind of somewhere in the mix of that that southwest area that covers both the Utah-Colorado region and the Pacific Southwest, you have the J3 guys that put on a Southwest Rotax championship last year. Obviously, we've got the Challenge of the Americas coming up, which is where Paulie's going if he would wake up and get on the microphone. And they're going to Tucson, Arizona. There's Phoenix, Arizona. There's a couple tracks in Nevada. There's a million tracks in California, the birthplace of karting. I don't know if there's a track in New Mexico, but we go through all that. And then, of course, we get to Texas and Louisiana. That kind of region together has a Texas Sprint Series. For a while, it kind of struggled as there was a bit of a power struggle between the Texas Pro Kart Challenge and the Texas Sprint Racing Series. But now it's just one championship, and they're getting over 200 entries, and there are a ton of tracks there. Point being, though, this map is still not even halfway colored in. And that's the regions that are either healthy or potential. There's still plenty more tracks, because then when we go to this clip right here that I just need to add into our show, and a big credit to Billy Musgrave and Musgrave Racing, this shows you all the tracks in the country. And I want to put that fully on screen for everybody. These are owner, and this is not even all of them. I was looking through some of it and going to all these pinpoints. There are so many go-kart tracks in the country, and 90% of the people, the ones on this list, are active, have club racing, and could use some help. And it's why I kind of get annoyed when we do stuff and we talk again about these promoters. You know, WK serves a number of tracks for club racing when it comes to insurance and providing a rule book. The IKF obviously has a lot of tracks out west. The NKA also is kind of your third in terms of insurance and rule books, and serves the rest of the tracks that those two organizations do not serve. And so when you color all that stuff in, there are so many places to race and so many places for a regional championship to go on that it's silly that we're fighting over some of these smaller regions. So we're going to chew on that for a moment. We're going to go to a commercial break. I want you guys to send your comments in of where you think there's really good racing or potential, or potential for a regional, or potential for some better club stuff at a facility already. We will come back with these guys. Maybe we'll get a few more words out of Paulie. Maybe make sure Ryan's not asleep. But we've got a few more guests that'll be joining us. So stick with us, folks. KC Happy Hour is going to roll on. Look, Paulie's not even looking at the camera. Clown. Get up. Wake up. We'll see you guys back here in just a moment.
KC Happy Hour is presented by Precision Performance Karting. PPK is the exclusive South Florida dealer for Coyote Motorsports kart racing chassis and Coyote's newest distributor. However, owner John Seglem and Coyote Motorsports' relationship spans across numerous decades in the sport, meaning that you've got years of winning expertise at your service. PPK offers trackside support at all of the CKNA South Division events, the CKNA majors, such as the Spring Nationals and the Grand Nationals, the Sunshine State Karting Challenge, and a number of club races in the Southeast. PPK also has an impressive driver roster at these events, racking up multiple wins and podiums in 2021 with longtime Coyote Motorsports driver Chris Carroll and KC Happy Hour's own Paulie Massimino and Brandon Jarsacrack. If you're looking to get on the same race-winning equipment as these drivers, from the Coyote Motorsports chassis to the Odenthal motor mounts and Greyhound racing seats, Precision Performance Karting has you covered. Check out Precision Performance Karting on Facebook and Instagram or email them at ppkartingfl@gmail.com. There's a new engine program on the block that's already begun winning races. Speed Lab Racing Engines has already racked up wins in X30 classes at the US Pro Kart Series and Rock GP classes at the most recent Rock Vegas event. Headed up by names you can trust, such as longtime engine builder Mario Lafredo and industry veteran Mike Speed, Speed Lab Racing Engines has quickly become the engine of choice for a number of top teams in the sport, most recently servicing the entire Rullison Performance Group and Speed Concepts Racing operations at Rock Vegas, and also servicing the likes of JC Karting and Mike Doty Racing. It won't be long before this engine program gets a wait list, with his resume already filling up with wins, so make sure to reach out and get your tune-up by emailing them at speedlabracinengines@gmail.com.
All right. I wanted to go ahead and bring in. Oh, he's already a little bit here. Jason Berry with NorCal Carters. Jason, you just shot me a link right before we came back from commercial that you've actually compiled that has almost double the amount of tracks in California alone than what even that initial map has gone. So, Jason, first of all, thanks for talking about this here and joining us on the show, because I want to go back over that Southwest region a little bit more.
Yeah, no, thanks for doing the live streams. Like I've told you in the past, it kind of prompted me to step up my game out here on the West Coast too. So I kind of rushed right in, so I might need a little bit of a primer.
Yeah.
But yeah, keep up the good content.
Yeah, no problem at all. No problem at all. So let's go ahead. We'll bring that back up really quickly here and go to it. So first and foremost, sorry, my mic's a little bit off here for some reason. I don't know what just happened right there, but trying to work on it. Let me see if I can get that figured out as we go here through. Hopefully this will be all right. Check. We better, guys? We sound good, bad, fellas?
Yes, it's good. It's good. It's good.
Good.
Good. All right. Thank you.
Good over
Thank
here.
you. All right, we're sending it. So let's go over here, Jason. So going to the Southwest and kind of breaking down. Let me find where we are in here with it.
Google slideshow or what's up?
There we go. What's that?
Little Google slideshow.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, we were slapping it together. Excuse me. There is another stuff going on. I'm a mess tonight, man. And I actually got sleep. The last week's show, I feel like I was more put together, and I was running on 2 hours of car sleep getting home from Miami. So, Jason, let's go through it here, kind of break down this region a little bit, some of the regional stuff. I barely scraped the surface. There's KPX. There's the California Rock Challenge this weekend. There's the Challenge of the Americas. There's and I may be leaving one or two out. So kind of break this down a little bit, because there's a lot of racing, a couple regionals already there. Obviously, SCUSA Cali Pro Kart Challenge. Let's go through at least a little bit of the lay of the land for these couple states we got.
Yeah, obviously I'm very NorCal centric. You already mentioned Challenge of the Americas with Andy Saisman. Their event's going on this weekend. I made the mistake last year. I called him a regional program, and he chewed my ass out. He's like, dude, we have national level talent showing up to these races. And the more I kind of thought about it, it's like, he's right. I mean, he's bringing in people from Canada, the whole west side of the country. And so he's really a national, specifically for that Challenge of the Americas series. You mentioned KPX. We have a couple really strong clubs in the area as well. We have Prairie City Karting, which is one of my home tracks. They're bringing in, on just their 4-stroke weekend, they're bringing in almost 100 entries for just a 4-stroke only weekend. And they're getting close to 80 or 90 entries for their 2-stroke only weekend. So the Durbin family's been kicking ass at, again, just a home track, local track. Let's see, what else do we have going on? It's a lot. We're so blessed to have so much karting in this area. We have the Central California Kart Racing Association. They're hitting 4 tracks this year. basically they're an old club called Kerman Kart Club. They lost their track, but they didn't give up. So they lost the track. It got developed. So Kerman Kart Track is no longer there, and they became a small club traveling series. And they're going to Buttonwillow, Santa Maria, Willow Springs, and they do a temporary track at the fairgrounds in Fresno. What else you got for me?
Yeah. No, that's the first bit. So I wanted to break down at least and go over how, in these regions, in these pockets, right, of the country that we have highlighted so far, outside of the pink in the upper Northeast, they've got regional programs to a degree. There's some level of really good club racing in there, but that's still only about half the states listed. And if we go back to the other map that I had, and even in your case in California, there could still even be a little bit more, where there's a lot of room to race. So again, I'm going to go through the comments a little bit, and just kind of go over some of the other comments that we've got in and address it. And of course, guys, we always invite you to invite questions and comments because, like I said, the main grief that I have when we have some of this news come out of another series in an already oversaturated region that already has a regional, already has, everyone committed to it. And it's just guys that are coming in because, obviously it's proven there's racers out there and they'll show up to events. And so it's like, oh, that guy's got a successful business. I'm going to go right over there and I'm going to do exactly what he did with a slightly cheaper price or a slightly different deal of the program. Or I'm going to push my tire brand instead of his tire brand because that tire brand wants me to go put a race series there so they can sell it, which the spec stuff is a different argument. But the point being, there's a lot of racing, and you've even seen that and talked about it a little bit yourself, Jason, that, it can get into a very quick and easy, division. And instead of having 300 drivers, you got 150 at one event and 150 at the other. And then it goes down and down and down from there. You've seen it well, documented in California.
Yeah. And the other thing too, that, a lot of your listeners need to be aware of, my show, your show, it's very sprint kart oriented.
Right.
It was brought to my attention the other day about, 4-stroke racing in ovals and dirt ovals that were bringing 200 or 300 entries. And maybe that's part of the problem with the pockets and I love your map. I like how you're doing the graphics there, but maybe that void, we don't see it because we're sprinters on asphalt and, those pockets are racing dirt.
Yeah. There's no doubt, right? Like there's overlap on that. And there's, still, again, right. Like, and all that, there's like Georgia is a massive dirt stronghold for 2 sprint racetracks and an amp. You can kind of count as and then 2 road racetracks with Roebling Road down in Savannah and Atlanta Motorsports Park that has both a sprint track and a car track that the road racers can go to. There's at least, I think, almost 10 dirt oval tracks. And there's the footprint for them is a lot smaller. Brandon, Dan, you guys are up in the Northeast. That is a massive dirt racing region in general. Brandon, your dad was, building sprint car wings and stuff like that for the longest time. There's probably a lot of dirt kart tracks up that way too. Yeah.
Yeah. Where I grew up in central PA, within probably 30 minutes of me, there was 5 dirt tracks, dirt ovals. Somehow I ended up in 2-stroke road racing or sprint racing. Don't know how, but yeah, Pennsylvania, Ohio, all pretty much the Northeast. There's so many dirt oval tracks that have go-karts, outlaw karts. All sorts of types of dirt racing. And they have so many different classes that you can run that there's just so much racing that goes on dirt.
And Dan, as a guy who spent years building a club up on the sprint side in Western PA, in Pittsburgh, obviously Pittsburgh's a big city, a big market, and you had the rental carts that you were instrumental, and not a lot of people know how instrumental you were in bringing those in to the racetrack as well once it was built to get some revenue going. And that's a great feeder program from the leagues to the enduros to the sprint side. But did you see or can you kind of talk? Is there did you ever have guys switch over from dirt or from road race to sprint or vice versa to go run on the road track at Pitt?
Yeah, we have a little bit of crossover there. Matter of fact, my kid a young driver that won our senior championship at Pitt Race this year, he's a lifetime dirt racer and started doing rental carts at Pitt for something fun to do on the weekdays, and ended up buying a cart and turned out to be a hell of a sprint racer too. But there's a lot of crossover that does happen because there's so much of everything else compared to what we do in sprint. Pittsburgh is on an island. Within less than an hour from my house, I can be at 6 dirt kart tracks, and probably a dozen, and within an hour and a half, I can be within a dozen dirt car tracks. But you also have a lot of road racing. We're so close to the track in West Summit Point, in Mid Ohio. There's a lot of road racing. I think the road race this year had 900 and some entries. So there's a lot of karting. It's just figuring out how to get them, into our world to try it. And usually when we get them over, they do stay for a while.
Right. And now I think more than ever, we're at a really good point with the sport. We got a lot of our viewers that were, ragging on the Rotax guys when we first came in about the event. But taking that aside, the motor is good, right? And so even I've kind of knocked the RTX guys a little bit for wanting to stay in Florida because, again, that map, if you look at it, there's so many freaking tracks in the whole southern hemisphere or southern half, not southern hemisphere, southern half of the US that they could go and put events on. And there's clubs that are desperate for support. And they have, and I think J3, I want to commend Justin and John, and Jim with the effort they put in up there because there hasn't been a lot of love in the Northeast, especially as the F Series has kind of faded backwards a little bit. And they've been able to pick up a lot of racing out there, whether it's been a United Karting, to Englishtown, to OBRP, to et cetera. And they're smart about it because the point that I want to make is that these clubs, a lot of them need some help and some love in some way. And I don't mean help in a bad way. They could just use support, whether it's a matter of a sponsor coming in and giving some motors out to kickstart a class or to put some tires or motors up for championship awards, some prize money, some help in. Most go-kart tracks fall in one or two areas. They're either a nonprofit track that has a lot of expertise and guys that know what they're doing, but they've all got full-time jobs because it's volunteer. So it's tough to get stuff going. Or you have tracks that are like Pittsburgh that are for-profit places, but sometimes they end up with a bit of a revolving door when it comes to general managers. And that's where stuff gets a little bit tricky. Atlanta Motorsports Park, one guy asked here, how come they're not races at Kershaw or A&P? Both of those tracks kind of fall into that ladder. I worked at Atlanta Motorsports Park when I was 16 and 17 years old, initially as a corner marshal, and then eventually you're helping run in their race series a little bit. And it was, I shouldn't have been in that position at 16. I did what I could. But it was just because the guys that were in it, I mean, they're very smart business people. I don't want to knock the GMs at all, but it's very simple. If you break it down at a new job, let's say you have 30 to 60 days to kind of before you figure out your bearings, right? For Paulie, it takes him about 5 seasons. He's just figured out how to not wreck people at a big race. He can kind of get through it and without just junking it. So it takes him a little bit.
Homestead, he did junk it pretty hard.
You're
All right. That wasn't my fault, though. That wasn't my fault, though.
The point being, it takes about
not
Vegas
my fault again. No.
It takes you 2 months to learn a job at least. Let's say 2 or 3 months even. Well, if they're doing rental karting, if they're doing corporate events, if they're doing owner kart practice days, I mean that can be done every day. But a club race is at best twice a month, typically once a month. So for them to get 30 or more club races in, they've got to be doing that job at 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And that's if they started with some mentorship from the previous group or from the racers that were involved to figure out how to get that going. And most of those guys aren't in those positions for more than a couple of years, again, talking to you guys have all seen it at different tracks across the country that have, management groups and have guys in paid salary positions. It's not a position you typically see long-term guys in. Where it normally works out is when you find, a former karting dad or a guy who just loves the sport like Dan or Jason, that's able to be in that spot. And when Dan was in charge of Pitt, I mean, the club blossomed, and since then it's now gotten a lot of help. And Dan, you've been a big supporter in getting those guys going, but you can attest, I mean, that it's not out of ill will. There's just a lot of people that just don't come from a karting background, end up in these jobs. They want to learn, but it's tough to get them up that learning because it's such a spider web, any discipline of the sport to really understand and do it well.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest things that's, those guys come in and very few of them have a real strong background in the sport, and and they're tasked with trying to put numbers down at a kart track, and I'll say this, most people in karting think that sprint racing's there's a lot of money in it and whatnot. I can tell you from experience, even as strong as a club that we ran, with 15 races and all the nationals that we put on back then, pro shop and whatnot, my split still was anywhere from 80-20 to 85-15, how much more rental carts and corporate events brought in compared to what we generated on the sprint track side. And you task somebody that doesn't know how to, really go out there and generate the numbers. It's a lot easier to open the doors for rental carts than it is to work for a couple of years to bring in the next 20 or 30 families that you need to turn over every single year. It's path of least resistance.
Yeah, it's not easy in any way. I mean, Ryan, you've gotten more and more involved at Orlando and bringing new guys in with coaching, with stuff like that. I mean, we're at least at a better point now with 206 racing kind of starting to grow and the other classes in the sport stabilizing, and they've been the same for the last 5 to 7 years, which has been needed. We haven't had a massive turnover track to track. Florida itself is coming back. You're seeing more guys come in, but you need to kind of handhold them, a little bit when they get in and guide them, because it's so tricky to navigate this sport.
Yeah, it is, and I think that's why it's growing in Florida a little bit with SSKC starting up, and a lot of the tracks in Florida are really like aiming to work together, which is something that I think is not really seen a lot in the nation. But all the tracks in Florida like organize their schedule around the other ones and around SSKC, and I think they're trying to get back to the days where there was a strong like local presence and a strong regional presence in Florida that created like some of the great drivers that you've seen today. And I think that's helping, a lot, like having the LO206 guys are getting pretty big down in Florida. And, I think that's why Rotax chooses to stay in Florida, because there is such a good regional presence. It just makes sense business wise to stay there. But yeah, I mean, I think it's getting better in Florida, and they're doing a good job keeping everybody, and like you said, kind of guiding everybody through the year. With the tracks planning everything around each other, it just kind of guides everybody into what you do. You just follow the schedule around, you go track to track, and you keep swinging in that circle, and then by the end of the year, you've got 30 races under your belt, and you've become a much better driver.
Right, and it's a matter of working together, and getting creative with ways to bring guys in. Jason, you brought up a really good point here in the private chat of the CCKRA doing a free arrive and drive event that at least does test drives, and a lot of clubs do that and can do that. And you don't even. And I mean, can you elaborate a little bit how that event went?
Yeah, so we actually did a podcast with them last night, and that was the big question I wanted to ask them is, one, why? I mean, to me, it's obvious why you would want to do it, but a little background on CCKRA. They're a nonprofit organization. So they're not a cart shop. They're not industry people. They're nonprofit. And it sounds like they have a really strong board. And they were just looking at how do we grow our membership. And they really did. When I say a free arrive and drive, they basically just put out the news that, hey, we're going to do a free arrive and drive on this day between these hours. They had a number of club members pretty much donate the packages for these arrive and drives. They have a local guy, Glenn Araki, who he's been around the sport forever. He's known in our area as just a great track support guy. He was there on hand, and basically they were taking names. If you fit in a racing cart, you were able to go out on the track. And the way they explained it to me, it seemed very primitive. They said they were all very worried about how it was going to go because they weren't expecting hundreds of people to sign up. And they said they opened it up for a couple extra hours, and they just ran people on the track. And can you fit? Okay, this is gas, this is brake, get out there, go do a few laps, and then boom, next group. And they had the advantage of having all the barriers and everything for temporary tracks. So they had a kid kart track, and they had a shortened adult size track. And they said it was a phenomenal success. It just gave me hope, at least for our regions. Like, okay, there are other ways to expose people to karting if we can get enough inventory and equipment to do something like that.
Well, I mean, I think Dan, did you guys did schools too, didn't you, at Pittsburgh, right? For a little, or some kind of private instruction where they could come and get in a racing cart for an hourly or half day deal. I can't remember.
Yeah, we did back then, and I have to say that even though we're completely independent of the track, currently we have a really great working relationship with them, and we have a host of arrive and drive carts. We have 2 kid carts, 2 cadets, 2 to 3 full size carts, and we probably do anywhere from 5 to 10 a week, just in the limited times that the track's open. In the summer, spring and fall are obviously less than that. But you get them out for an hour track time. And I do prefer the complete news to go out on the rental carts first instead of beating up my equipment. But
they even had shifters out there.
I'm not gonna put anybody out the shifter. I've watched too many of my carts end up in a fence and arrive and drive. No, but I mean, it's those programs are absolutely huge. We do some things to kind of encourage it. Currently all the everybody that wins a race at the rental cart league races gets an hour arrive and drive, so we get them a taste of the proper race cart. We'd like to expand that. We have about a half a dozen indoor tracks near us, and we'd like to expand that to there. But it's tough trying to tell somebody we want to come in and take their customer and have them spend their money elsewhere. So but that the arrive and drive thing, there's no better way of getting people in the sport. You put a kid in, or you put an adult in to a cart, and 9
times out of 10 they're hooked.
Yeah, and it's not so much the time that young drivers out on track. It's the hour that you get to spend with a parent and talking them through what it takes to get started, and where the support comes from and what classes they run in, and all those things that we hear from every single person that tries to get into sport. I have no idea what I'm supposed to buy or how to get into it or whatever. We kind of act as that cushion, while the kids out there driving around. We're the sounding board to answer as many questions as we can in that hour.
100%. And even the free arrive and drive stuff, it doesn't even have to be free. When I was at Atlanta Motorsports Park, and they still do this, and that this karting school division that they have, I would say they're more driving experiences than they would even be karting schools. But they have normally groups of 8 to 12 that they'll sell in these schools. You can look it up on ampkartracing.com, and I'm giving them a shout out just because I know the background of the model really, really well, because I was an instructor with it and helped them plan out a lot of them. They could even do them during the week and normally sell them pretty good. It's a full day school for normally $395 or $400 even. You could do half the day for 2/3 the price at $270. You get 3 to 5 sessions in a go-kart. They start you in either a rental kart or a 206. Begin with a track walk. They'll cycle them in between the rental karting sessions and the owner kart sessions for only 5 groups or 10 total sessions in a 9 to 5 day. By the end of the day, out of a group of 8 or 10, not only are the guys tired, you've talked to them the whole day, like Dan said, you do those arrive and drive stuff, and that's a profitable model because they can put a big seat on the go-kart. They can have a fleet of 4, and they can run 2 groups in them or 3 groups in them with 1 instructor. So if you get a group even of just of 12, at $400 a pop, I mean, that's $4,800 that they've got right there. There's maintenance. There's an instructor, a couple instructors to run a group like that. And there's obviously marketing money that goes in, but it's a great lead for all of them. In fact, they do a kid kart school that is 100% free. That's after the end of the day, after kids get off school for an hour or 2, they let them drive around in the parking lot in kid karts with a rope tied to the back. And it generates leads for the business like no other to get guys hooked into the club. And it's a big reason why that club has gotten to the point where it's over 100 entries in Atlanta. So point of the show, and while we go to commercial break, we'll come back. We've got a lot of really, really great input coming in on the comments that we're going to hit. We're going to hit all you guys. Keep sending those in if you want to talk about your region or have us talk about it or ask a question about the stuff we're doing. But the point I want to make, and the reason I rag on organizations like WK is not an independent series promoter only. they're supposed to and have stuff in place where they benefit financially from the sport growing all together, from the rule book to the insurance to so on and so forth, the clubs they have. And there's so many pockets that have a lot of potential, not only to grow the club scene and grow the sport as a whole, which is obviously great for everybody involved, but there's a lot of ways if you get creative, whether it's putting on a regional series. And if you're going to put it on, you can't just go and show up there and promote it when you're at the event. I mean, for that regional stuff to work, what's made SSKC work, what's made Texas Sprint Racing Series work, what's made the Pad Holder Cup work, what's made the California Pro Kart Challenge and Andy Saisman's Southwest Steel work, and what's made the Northeastern stuff and the Midwestern stuff work is those promoters. They aren't just posting on Facebook and posting on Instagram and just showing up for those 4 events that they run. They are in person at the clubs, working with the clubs, building relationships with the clubs that they're going to visit, and even the clubs that they don't in that region, making relationships with the drivers and getting a proper network built up and support system built up, and that stuff can grow. But there's a lot of pockets in the country, and I'll put that map up one more time because it helps me drive this point home. There are so many sprint tracks alone that aren't even listed on this map that are massive. Some have clubs. They've got facilities for it. They may not. They might have people in place. They may not. They might have money in place, and they need people. But there's a lot of potential in this sport, and we don't need to be stepping on each other. And it's easy to say that we don't need to just keep going to stuff that works. We don't need to just keep going to a region that works, that already has racers. It's easy. It's low-hanging fruit in a lot of eyes. But if you put the hard work in and you really build up a base, that's where the sustainability comes in for TSRS, for SSKC, for Pad Holder Cup, for F-Series for the longest time. And now with the Stars Series, they're boots on the ground and working in those regions, and being with the Route 66 Sprint Series here with the USPKS chiming in, has been around for a long, long time and covers the Midwest. We talked about them earlier. All those series, it's more than just the Facebook stuff. There is a lot of effort. I don't want to make it seem like it's easy, but there's a lot of room for potential on the series side to support those clubs and get those clubs bigger, and that'll just kind of circular the movement. The regional and club relationship is so tight that if a regional gets big, the clubs will therefore get bigger, and vice versa if it's done well. But the arrive and drive opportunities are massive for any shop. And like Dan said, if you've got the backing to go to rental car places and kind of promote them, you can get really creative, and you could just with your Facebook ads, put it as a location right on top of their location if they won't let you in, and run ads on people's phones. But if you can work with the rental karting places and work with them, and I think you can kind of get guys in, and it's just tough. It needs a little bit of help and a little love and obviously some money to get going. But there's ways for the sport to grow where guys could benefit and people could make some serious side businesses or even full-time businesses out of it. And I just want to drive that home before we just rag on the guys that are already there. So we've got a lot of great input. We've got to talk a little bit more about Challenge of the Americas, which again is your Western Coast National Winter Championship, and preview it. Paulie was supposed to do it. Paulie's done a terrible job. We're firing Paulie from the show. He's awful. I'm kidding. Paulie did a great job. He actually has some input, and he's going to be there in person. I love you, Paulie. Thanks for smiling.
Same.
We'll be back after the commercial break, guys. Stick with us.
Kart Store USA is a kart parts supplier that racers and retailers can count on when they need reliable advice and service. We focus on servicing all racers with honesty and pride while maintaining customer satisfaction. We carry a full stock of Kart Republic and Tony Kart chassis, as well as IAMI and Vortex Rock engines. We've also got a host of other parts available and in stock, such as products from Rev Performance Materials, Jecco Racing Seats, and more. We have a 100% satisfaction guarantee, and on top of that, if your order exceeds $200, shipping is on us. Check out all we have to offer today by visiting us online at kartstore-usa.com.
As the Western importer of the Praga and Formula K chassis brands, Leading Edge Motorsports is a high-performance kart shop and race team with a simple mission: teach others the joy of high-performance driving, supply our customers with the highest quality products and services, and most of all, win races. With our remarkable racing inventory, expert services, and top-ranked national-level team to back it up, we'll help to get your new kart racing package up and running fast. From arrive and drive service to kart preparation and driver coaching to the parts you need to get you back on the racetrack, Leading Edge Motorsports is the industry answer.
I'm Billy Vincent, owner of MPG Motorsports. What we do at MPG is we try to keep it a nice, fun family atmosphere, try to combine sort of the bigger things and of the bigger teams and the professionalism down with sort of some of the fun, sort of family-oriented atmosphere. We try to not only develop drivers, but also the parents and the families for just in knowledge in general in motorsports. It all starts in karting. What we try to do is try to help the drivers, the moms, the dads understand the sport of motorsports in general, not just karting, but what it takes to get all the way up through. Whether you end up wanting to be a driver or a mechanic or an engineer, we can help you with that, and that's what we're here for. If you're interested in joining us at MPG, our home base is at Whiteland Raceway Park in Indianapolis, and you can contact us at info@willpowerkart.com, and one of our great people will reach out to you, and we'll try to put the best program together.
So once again, guys, welcome back to KC Happy Hour. I've been ragging on Paulie for a couple weeks now, so I probably should dial things back. Paulie, we do appreciate you, buddy. You're obviously headed out west. You've never been to Tucson before. Dan, I know Jason has, obviously, and Jason, we'll get to you. Dan, I know Ryan and Brandon have it. Have you made it over to Tucson, Arizona for a race? You have not. Okay, so first time over there, the track races unbelievably well. For anyone that's tuning in, unfortunately, we're not doing any. There's no streaming going on, but there is a plethora of really, really awesome GoPro races. eKarting News has a couple with Rob's commentary on it from Challenge of the Americas over the years. Track races really well. The biggest thing about it, the flow is good, pretty much start to finish, and that has a number of passing opportunities, but not a lot of tight passing opportunities that are awkward where you lose a lot of time. So you can pass guys back the next corner, 3 corners later, and still get, or if you make a pass, you can stay in the pack and lose maybe a kart length or two, which not a lot of tracks really can boast. It races phenomenally well. Jason said it's, you don't want to call it a regional, even though it stays in the Southwest region, because there's a lot of national guys that do go there. It serves the western half of the national guys before the SCUSA Pro Tour kicks up, before they may come east for the US Pro Kart Series, or before they just run that, get ready with the other regional championships like the California Rock or the SCUSA Cali Pro Kart, and get ready for Las Vegas. But there's national talent, national teams there, Nash Motorsports, GFC Karting. I'm missing so many, but I know GFC obviously has dominated the shifter stuff out west. They've got a ton of guns. Ryan Perry Motorsport and Leading Edge have been based out there. They've got a lot more East Coast stuff they're doing right now. But Paulie, you're heading over with RPM. Do you know how many guys you got? Do you know if you got any big heavy hitters, at least on your end?
I'm not sure. I think he told me 13 drivers in all different classes, some in mini, some in junior, some in senior. Some people I work with that rock the Rio, a bunch of people I haven't worked with before, but I look forward to it. Never been over there. I took a second to look at the track. I watched like 2 corners and then I got bored, but we'll see how it goes.
Oh, man, it's just, you make it too easy. You make it way too easy to rag on me, Paulie. But at least from what I know, and there's no published entry list. I don't have that. ECAN will have their preview, so you guys can check out. They're going to be there, full coverage. They do radio shows for beginning with Friday final practice, which is cool. They do a hot pit out there for Challenge of the Americas. Has been a mainstay for a long time. Jason, you've been at those events for years and years and years as a West Coast-based guy, so you can help, and I'll bring you in to talk about it. But at least from what I know, Hunter Pickett, Kyle Wick, obviously, are 2 big-name shifter guys that'll be out there. I talked with some of the guys that go coast to coast. Jake French, he's not going to be out there. I think he was thinking he might end up working, might not run that program for a couple seasons. There's more. And then on the 100cc side, the cool part about having that where you split the field up a little bit and it becomes a little more regional is that you get some drivers that maybe can crack the top 10 at the big races, but they're the stars of the show because there's not as many guys there. For example, Macy Williams made a big name for herself and then really kind of got her national season going with a bang beginning in Utah with the SCUSA Pro Tour last year. And I remember showing up and I was asking our good buddy of the show, Oliver Calvo, who's a West Coast NorCal kid who had been dominant in KPX 100cc competition and national level driver, national level podiums and wins and beyond, was like, man, I think Macy's going to do really, really good. And I hadn't heard of her really outside of seeing the name come up a little bit. And there's a couple other big names out there that I'm missing. So Jason, you're out in Cali. You hear the buzz about the event. I know you're not going because you like to clock out. You like to be pampered. You don't work in the rain, but
yeah.
But what have you heard? I mean, obviously it's got to be pretty good because they've had momentum the last couple seasons.
Yeah, I was busy with my social media today, so I just couldn't make the plane flight to Tucson. No, it's a really cool series. Where you're laughing because you saw my post?
No, I believe you. I believe you.
It's a really cool series. I mean, it's a 3-race series. It's January, February, March. So a lot of times, we get out of the rain. You can go to Phoenix or Tucson. Typically, are the first 2 races, and the weather down there is always nice. Tucson, I know, has always had some really good racing action. It's one of those tracks. I mean, if I had to, I'm a shifter guy, so I would probably be looking at Hunter Pickett on the shifter side of things. Ron White, I'd be looking at Ron White if he's racing.
Oh yeah, completely forgot to.
Yeah, I'd be looking at if he's racing. I've not seen an entry list either, so I'm kind of flying blind here. But yeah, that track is it's really neat. It's a really cool little track. I shouldn't say little. I mean, it's a proper kart track.
Yeah, and again here for the shifter stuff's going to be the main class of the show. The format's going to have them as the final class, the headline division. The Rock GP stuff's kind of hard to stick. Obviously that's Ryan doesn't have the engine advantage. That's why he doesn't run Rock stuff at all anymore. He quit the Rock GP. Right, Ryan? Yeah. So that stuff's a little bit lighter out there. And of course, the 100cc stuff, they've allowed the KA motor, which, being out in Cali, Scusa, and Miami's had the mainstay. So the KA class should be massive in junior, or at least in senior. The junior stuff, I don't know how well the balance is going to be because it changes year to year as they fight a little bit on headers or timing and stuff to get those motors as close as they can. And then, the other guy, whether it's Miami or Vortex, will do something and then it'll come out a little bit faster. But the senior stuff, because it's the KA normally has more builders doing it. And so they figured that one out more than the VLR. You'll have more guys on that. And since that's allowed in, that'll be massive because there's no KA racing elsewhere out west to start the year. The mini and micro stuff's budding. And for them, it's not a big deal because the motors are cheaper to run both. And then obviously shifter, up in NorCal at Sonoma, the club races is pull 15 to 20 in senior and another 10 or so in master. So they can pull a good shifter group and always do for COTA. So it'll be good to see that that come in and hopefully. And I wanted to get more guys from there. I know Ray Sobrante set it out with his group. He's got some customers and a few other guys. I was talking with Sonny Cervelli yesterday. They were super stoked to get the GFC product in they finally have a finalized after 3 years of kind of doing a little bit of tweaks in R&D on componentry for the GFC chassis, which is, the same as your TB carts, very similar. And obviously the TB stuff works. The Eduardo V had dominated, at least was right up there with domination, at least be right at the front of the field. And he was a guy I didn't know much background in. Luckily, Chris Wareheim, resident Euro expert, and one of our resident Euro experts knew him really well. So interesting stuff there. But let's go over at least some of the comments because there's been so many that have come in, here. The last thing I will say, we're going to keep bringing more specialists on the show as we go through the last bit of Q&A. Moving after Challenge of the Americas, next week's show will be a recap of the event. It'll also have, we'll bring John Segleman with Precision Performance Karting, one of our partners of the show, to help us hype up the CKNA South race. That'll be the first week of February in Monticello. Brandon's racing it, working it, has his own team deal going. That racetrack, Brandon, you went down there. You didn't run it, but Paulie ran it the year before, right?
Paulie ran it. I didn't.
Paulie, thoughts on Monticello? I think the layout looks really cool. I haven't been. I know the facility's so-so, but the layout looks sick.
Yeah, the track was actually pretty fun. The only thing that wasn't so great was the facility. Bathrooms weren't too good, but no, the track was fun, and I had a good time over there.
It's just one of those. The story behind that track, really, I think it's Juan Pablo Montoya's father. That was the one. It was between him and I think Christian Fittipaldi that were the guys that did the design and helped build it. And now it's pretty much just a club track. The only downside is just really far from town. But the layout is awesome. Everybody loves going there. Like Paulie said, the facility, there's just not much facility. I won't even say the facilities are bad. It's just not a lot. They've got a covered grid. They've got some tents. They've got some porta potties. There's not a lot over there, but in any case, we'll bring John on, maybe a couple other 206 specialists to help us preview CKNA South, see if we can get a couple of the drivers that finish up front, and maybe some team guys from COTA as well to join us next week. But let's go through everything that we've got on the comment section. Lots to dive into. First and foremost, at the beginning of the show, yes, it took me a second. No, it was not to get my hair perfect. I was scrambling, as I always do, to try and get the comments together. Ryan actually was the one that needed to get his hair perfect and ready to go.
Oh, come on.
Obviously.
I literally was on like 45 minutes early this time.
Yeah, it's okay. We know Ryan will sign out before we finish the closing credits, though. He's quick to get out of it.
I got Chick-fil-A on the app, man. It's waiting.
Let's see. Let's go on through. We had on more. So Neo Gothic Racing, and there were a couple other ones like this, right? Don't need another Briggs Spec series. And so that was a lot of the comments that were echoed in it. That, there's still a lot of Lynn Haddock put it really well as like a single light bulb engine builder. So before the 206 motor, there was the Briggs flathead engine, and there was some more there was more that the builders could do because that they had like I think there was like a stock and then like a more open class, if I remember right. I think I might be a little bit off on that, but there was again, like I said, in the old days of WK Gold Cup, in the old days of 4-cycle motors, there was a 2-tier or 3-tier deal where the builders could really build the motors, and then that gets them out of the 206 class. I've said forever what the beauty of the CKNA stuff is you don't have RPG with a full-time engine builder and I mean engine builder for engine development with AVP. We joke about it with Ryan having an advantage, but they're set up as a proper pro race team with a builder for the team that can actually do R&D, whereas a lot of your engine builders in the sport, to make money, they have to do a bunch of engines. It's tough for them to do R&D. So when something new comes out, the RPG guys are set up to take advantage and really come out of the gate firing because they've got more time to work on it. Everyone else is a little more strapped for time. Keeping those guys in X30 keeps the KA stuff a little bit better. And again, keeping a lot of the big money teams like PSL and RPG out of 206 racing keeps 206 racing good. But even in 206 racing, there's still 206 specific chassis manufacturers and engine builders that have liked working on those motors. If you could get a second tier class above that lets the builders play, it'll kind of keep them from adulterating the 206 motor and letting it manifest into where everyone thinks they've got to build it. So, that's a really good point. Abram Racing here talking about how he'd love to see AMP with a missed opportunity, but you're right. Again, we covered it. The parking, it's so tricky. Atlanta Motorsports Park, they're doing everything they can. I don't have an overlay of the track, but you guys can look on Google. The track is nestled on top of a mountain. It's a beautiful racetrack. It would be cool. It has the length and the buildings and the money and a healthy club that it could hold to national if there was enough parking space, but there isn't. Some of it won't ever exist just because of the landscape without millions of dollars of bringing land up to the high level of that racetrack. And I mean, level like elevation. But I think it very easily, if that club keeps growing and if the right person could step in, a Southeastern regional could take place there of 150 entries. It would just be really, really tight and really tricky to do. But I think it could happen. And again, if Carolina Motorsports Park in Kershaw gets going, and if the right people keep helping, if the right people are in place to guard Charlotte Motor Speedway and guide them, you could have really 4 top tier tracks in the Southeast that could have a very nice championship independent of the guys that just go to GoPro or go down to Florida. And obviously Barnesville is a historic track, but even with the expansion they've got, it's a little bit tight and parking would be a little bit tight to host more than 100-something entries. Let's go down here. There were a few other comments that were really, really good that came in here. A few more track shout outs. Matt K shouting out Circleville, Ohio, home of Zach Beach, Braden Eves, who's on the show. Kyle, our producer, grew up over there. Kyle, pop you on in. You grew up, you know Circleville real well. Fremont Raceway Park.
Yeah, I grew up there. And it's a small track, but it's a good one.
Yeah.
Same with Circleville.
Yeah.
Circleville is probably my favorite. All right, let me talk about Circleville.
Oh, okay. Here,
yeah, you caught me off guard. I was nowhere near ready for this. Yeah, Circleville. I don't know what's going on there now. I know the MSOKC club is gone now, and I think they tried to start something up, and then so I don't think there's anything really going on now. I think you can still test there, but if anybody is interested, we should definitely fix Circleville up and start racing there like more frequently.
Yeah,
for sure.
No, it's a cool layout, a very, very cool layout. I'll let Kyle get back to it. I kind of throw him under the bus, but or I guess just out in the open. But Kyle is my resident Ohio expert and helps out a lot there because there's a lot of racing in that area. Shout out from David Cunningham to United Karting in Hanover, Maryland. And again, like we talked about Paul earlier about how the Northeast has a big potential for a proper regional championship that could go out there. Freddie Rammer was asking if anyone had reached out about PK Race Park. I don't have contacts with them directly. The best I know is Carlos Iaconelli with PK Sports Race Team. But I know that they're, like I said, they're pretty much on track. Like you said, starting construction to hopefully be ready to host a winter tour level event, I think, in 2023. So we're very early in the year. We're obviously just getting through the first month of winter tour level races in January, but I'm sure that is 100% on Rock Cup USA's radar and SSKC's radar, and probably even CKNA South and their radar to get into Southern Florida. It's in West Palm Beach. It's going to take up where Palm Beach International Raceway was. There's money behind it. There's the right people behind it. And it's going to be a really top-notch facility. So that one could definitely be one that gets up there. Chris Hatch talked about Canaan Motor Club, which is held. Brandon, have you ever checked that place out in your time up in the Northeast?
No, I've never been there.
So it's kind of like more of a car track. It's so massive. It's very similar to Brian when you went to run Amarillo. Amarillo is kind of like a hybrid, like a sprint and like a road race track. Canaan is very similar to that, but 150 to 180 inches, that's massive. We'll keep on going down here. Again, I talked Joseph Rapp, 61 Cartway. Some love, Rob Newsell from OVKA and Camden, Ohio. Marianne Gilmore turning in from Tucson now at the Coder Waste. Great weather. So awesome to hear. Here we go. This is a good one here. I was late on this, but the comment came in. We'll see how long it takes me to read it. Polly reading it.
Already read it.
Already read it?
Already read it.
Let's give it a timer. Oh. Hi, Ryan.
Hey. What am I doing?
There we go. Someone wants to slap you on the back of the head.
Oh. I wasn't paying attention.
Yep, exactly. There you go. Thank you, Neo Gothic Racing. I guess this is a couple of good comments that came in here at the end of the show. We're running a little bit long, which is why we're losing Ryan because he's getting hungry. But
yes.
Randy Raridan talking the biggest problem in karting period is that for the most part, no matter the size of the club or the track, most only race club races will not travel even to nearby club races, which is kind of true. I mean, to a degree. And I think that's why, again, the Rotax guys, the 206, even your Tillotson, right? Tillotson's trying to break into the 4-cycle market, go into tracks, even if there's tracks a couple hours away, there's not a ton of crossover. Dan, you can attest to that here at Pittsburgh. You guys run the Mojo tire, correct? Still for the 206 stuff?
Yeah, we run the Mojo D2 as our club tire for 206. And originally it seemed like a horrible idea, just because nobody else does it. But it's turned into the best club tire I've ever run because it's absolutely horrible out of the box. And it doesn't get any better until the third or fourth heat cycle. So nobody can put on new tires for qualifying, but they'll run 30 heat cycles and they'll go fastest right before the cords pop through. And you'll only lose about 0.2 when the cords pop through. You just take them off because it's probably getting a little dangerous. But we're the only ones that do it. So, that's the downside, but we have
still seen growth.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
We've gone.
I mean, that's, that's sorry. But yeah, that the point being on the comment here is right. Even though that's both a problem, right? That it's tough to get club guys to travel, which is true when you have a regional in a region or a club trying to grow. You shouldn't ever try and base it off of, the next door track a couple hours down, or even if it's only an hour, 45 minutes, hour 15 away. Sometimes it's even harder to get guys to run both or to come over to run your racetrack. The crossover is almost 80-20 club to club race. And even when a regional will visit a club track, you'll lose the bottom half of the club field typically because they don't think they're at that level. They don't think they're competitive enough for it to be fun. A little bit of expense because a multi-day regional is going to cost more. But again, the beauty of that and the glass half full of this comment is that you can run a different motor or a different tire or a different program altogether. Like Jason said, they have 2-cycle and 4-cycle club races at Prairie City. That's out of the norm, but it can work because clubs can be very isolated. So that's where there's a lot of potential. If you're looking at a lot of states together, there's a lot of racing in the Midwest and the Southwest and so on, but there's still a lot of pockets like Circleville, Kyle mentioned, Fremont, so on and so forth, that all could benefit from having a lot of love at just one club track, and easily get a 80, 100, 90, regular guys running there if one guy went there and put in a lot of effort on a arrive and drive or club program or what have you. So, and then Barry Hastings chipped in here. Club guys not traveling is a small problem. But again, good point, right? No problem being a club guy either. Club guys having full-time club guys is important. At the end of the day, that's what makes the national races even possible, is that, for guys like Brandon and Paulie and Ryan to be able to exist in the sport needs to be a full-on pyramid with whether you want to say budget or talent or both. It's obviously a mix of guys at the bottom, at the club level, at the base, which has to be massive to support the races at the very, very top. And Dan, you and I have had enough bull sessions about it. We focus way too much on the top and not enough on the bottom. The bottom needs love, but there's room, as you've proven with yourself, with your project, with the Arrive and Drives and having a shop, with Jason just having a media group and doing your own thing with flipping carts and helping guys out on the local level. There's pockets for potential to get some value back for your time, even at a single club or a single racetrack or a single small region. There's a lot of room. There's not the bright lights and egos and brand new helmets and brand new go-karts, but there's a lot of room for potential at all those levels, And let me see. We'll go down. We've gotten a few more as they've come in here. I wanted to go on. And so this was going back on that other comment, and I wanted to highlight it because it was something really good. Don Wesley, who is one of the admins of the Briggs, or one of the big mainstays. I don't know. I'm not sure, Don, if you're an admin. You correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sorry, but I haven't looked at the list. But on the Briggs 206 Racers Facebook group, which is the biggest karting group I've seen in the U.S. that's active beyond just trade posts, bringing up a really good point, that if WK wants a 4-cycle program to be good, it needs to be a little bit different. It needs to be above a 206, et cetera, so on and so forth. And you'll get attraction if it's pushed right, but it won't come easy, and neither will go into these new regions that I'm talking about. But there's room to grow if you're the only one doing it. Whereas if you try to go and copy someone else's model in the sport, it almost never works. Here, good point from Justin. Justin, thanks again for being a member and also for the quick donation to promote guys to go to at the big events like Supernats, Rock Island, Elkhart Grand Prix, the creative ways to get guys into the sport as well too, where you've got the sexy part of the sport with a massive event. We could take even more advantage of trying to promote guys to them. I've said forever, I think Supernats is an awesome opportunity if we had it more structured to fans, because people go there just to watch. So you could get more of a funnel into the clubs and regionals with guys that are there. Jason, if you could save up the money, maybe do a NorCal Carter's booth at Supernats or something this year, be a lot.
Yeah. As I'm reading that comment, it's, I know, SCUSA has spent a lot of money trying to put karting on TV. I don't know, as a local guy, if there's any value by going to a Supernats, trying to bring people into it, piggybacking off their venue, at least directly on, while the event is going on. But with that being said, I've told people for years, if you're new into karting, go to Vegas and go check it out. If you think you want to race it one year, go down there as a spectator first, so you can kind of take in the whole circus and not be overwhelmed when you show up with your team and have big expectations, and then you realize that it's a whole different world down there. I think you can parlay those big races. I just don't know if a booth is if the booth is the right way to do it.
No, I'm just messing with you here. Hold on, we're gonna make one little moment. I love this conversation. I want to keep it going and run an extended show, but here's the problem. Ryan is very hungry, and Ryan would like to go and get himself Chick-fil-A before they close at 10
Closes
p.m.
at
So
10,
Ryan,
man. I got to get out of here.
We're going to go ahead and kick you out of the show, Ryan. Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
For once, Paulie's not the first one kicked out. So later, Ryan. But we'll keep going here and keep on moving on through the show. So let me go back on to some of the other comments. My point with that, though, is that's an event where you get, at least at Supernats, at Rock Island, at all those street races, where you have massive amounts of go-karts together from a media side. Using media and using pictures and video, going there to get that, and then finding a way to take that back home. I mean, if someone was going to launch an arrive and drive program and wanted to run Facebook ads and Instagram ads to do it, a place to go would be to showcase Supernats, right? If maybe you don't want to put them in a shifter, but you can show them how fast go-karting is.
Yeah.
And run stuff out of it. Just filming with your phone when you're in the pits and stuff like that, or in the grandstands is cool. So there's ways to do that. Again, the cool part of SCUSA by and IKF, Justin, is, they're motivated on the way down. NKA helping promote Rock Island, motivated all the way at the base of the sport. So there's stuff that they could do to help. They would benefit from seeing growth at the bottom level, and using events like Rock Island and the street races that are free, I think are also a major avenue that we could have more booths at, especially free ones. Like Rock Island that has thousands of spectators. Quincy in the park has thousands. Lancaster used to have a ton of spectators and a lot of guys that'd be like, "What in the world is this sport?" And how do we even start with it? So to a degree, those events can be massive drivers for the sport. I think, I definitely.
Or even another idea is having almost like a industry liaison.
Yeah.
Because all of us, we go to races, whether they're local races or big races. I don't care who the team is. Just think of that first team that comes to your mind, and you go to the event, and you're a new guy, and you walk into their tent, and you start asking questions. I can't think of a single team or tent at a big race that's going to be, oh yeah, I got plenty of time to talk to you right now. And it'd almost be cool to have like a liaison. It's like, hey, I can't speak to you right now. We're in the middle of our biggest race of the year, but I have a guy on site. Let me call him. He'll be over here in 5 minutes. He can answer all your questions, walk you around the pits. There might be an avenue for something like that.
That'd be cool from like a promoter side, right? And then if you had like, you could have a nearby shop kind of be that guy, right? And that would come there, that would benefit. And then, you could give guys a discount on their parking space if they had like a fan hospitality area at those races,
Yeah.
Like give them, if they double their pit space and they bring up extra canopies and a few couches and chairs to hang out next door to their tent for people that aren't in the tent. I mean, that would be something, Brandon Jarschak Racing needs a fan zone, I think.
Working on it. Got to get
or
more
the teams pitch in to cover the expenses for someone to be down there, and the leagues kind of just get equally divided.
Yeah, for sure. We're going on through here. A couple more track shout outs really quick. Obviously, Phoenix Kart Racing Association, 20% member growth. Congrats to you guys down there. Micah Hendricks, a guy who's been another guy like everyone in here has been top to bottom in the sport. So cool, and appreciate you tuning in there. Wanted to make sure we give you some love. Chris McCrone with Ohio Motorsports Park. Again, I've talked with Chris a good bit. They're working on making sure they've got a smart flow with it, where they've got a separate rental track in place from the owner track, but the plan is to try and link that facility together. Because again, Dan, like we said the whole time, you can attest to it. Your crossover into karting starts with the rental karting nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Chris's project could be a game changer in our region. I'm a huge fan of what he's doing and all the work he's put in so far. To be able to run an owner track nonstop, but still have your rentals running side by side. All those rental people and league people can come over and watch the kart owners run. You can have rentals running at the same time as a big local or regional race event. What he's coming up there is going to be something that I think could be a model for how you approach this going forward.
Clark Haddon bringing up a great point here. That if America, again, the arrive and drive stuff, it just turns guys into racers. 30 guys. I mean, that GoPro's club started, and most of their 206 guys are former rental kart guys. I mean, that's just where it comes from with it. This was a cool concept that I'm going to bring. There was 2 comments about endurance kart racing here. And this is, again, something I've thought of, daydreaming about pro events that I'd love to be able to put on, is that, at the beginning of a weekend, if you had rental karts there, or even if you wanted to put them in 206s, a pro-am where you pair one of the pro drivers that'd be racing in the event, your Paulies, Brandons, Ryans, etc., your Jake Frenches, Hunter Pickett's, Kyle Wicks, so on. They'd go in and be put on a team with brand new drivers, or sponsors of the event or fans to get into it. Because I think Jim's right. A lot of guys don't jump into fear of the unknown. I know for me with my parents, my dad has an English degree. My mom worked in IT. We were scared for the longest time to get into karting, and the only reason that we actually were able to do it after months and years of me pulling their leg was when we did an indoor league. I went down and shout out to Dylan Murray, who's racing in sports cars this week at Daytona. He did their indoor rental league with me, And I met him through there. And when we showed up to Barnesville to our club track, he was racing with his dad. And so it was like a helpful that we had a friend in it when we got in. But yeah, I mean, that's the scary part too, right? Going back on the liaison thing you said, Jason. I mean, even if it's if they're able to figure out how the go-kart works, it's scary just getting in on a competitive side.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and that's one of the things I've been kind of toying with, up in this region is a lot of the shops have evolved to race teams. It's, outside of Prairie City, it's very hard to find kind of a walk-in kart shop. And, what about just having that guy at the track doing just a small team of, hey, this is a tire pressure gauge. This is start here and kind of pat them on the butt, tell them how to lube their chain, but at least they're not completely lost. And again, that would be a very club level type program.
Oh, for sure. Let's see. We've got a few more here. A few more track shout outs here. SJ Perkins with Pat's Acres, LM on YouTube. Greg Moore Raceway, home of the I should know the initials for WCKC. I don't want to say Western Canada. I think it might be Western Canada Karting Club. I could be wrong. I'm so sorry if I get that one wrong. But going
Pat's
on down
Acres
here.
is great.
Yeah, Pat Sager's awesome racetrack. Let's go on down here. So we have the final few comments that had been coming in here. That was there was one or two that were really good that I think I missed. Dylan Cradleball with the OVK swap meet coming up. That's another smart event that it takes a lot of legwork to put on. But that is a great show that's coming where they've got a lot of used carts and it's great for everyone to get it out. Question, that's where we're not racing. So, bringing people to those events, it's hard to get them there for something else. But like the PRI show for the longest there was the show in Orlando. Dan, you were around the sport in enough to know about it. They thought it was like a Red Bull race or something where they'd have the pro drivers coming in like January. It was both like a trade show and like a temp race track they set up.
It was right outside the convention center in Orlando.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. It was a short track. It was a little bull ring, and they had a pro class and an AM class, and there was some crossover. I think top 5 in the AM class got to run with the pros, and it was a lot of fun. I did it. I took carts down a couple of years, and it was really a great time, and you had a lot of people lining the fence for that. And stands were always packed. Good time.
Yeah, so if they're, that'd be another deal if we could have more specialty stuff at the swap meets to get guys out to, because that's just the perfect environment for people to see and talk to the sport, because everyone's just there to talk and sell. If there's a way to have, the guys in with Margay and with Gateway Kartplex, they bring in rental carts to the old St. Louis Rams Stadium where they have the Gateway Dirt Nationals, and did a rental track in there for a minute over the winter when they'd shut down. I mean, there's just a lot of creative ways in the sport to get more guys in. And, the last comment here, really good point. Again, Ricky Worley, right? It's one thing to get guys in. It's a whole different thing to keep them in it for a number of years. And that just goes back to the point that I want to make sure that we continue to drive home with everything as we sign this extended podcast off for the night, that it's a matter of effort that doesn't go away. This isn't any of these business plans we talk about, any of these little side projects, anything volunteer-based. You can't just get in, do it for a few years, hand it off, and then it goes. I mean, then, the club racing, the everything else, it takes nurturing year after year after year. It becomes a different job. It's a different job of running a 50 entry club than it is a 100 entry club. And it's a different job running a 200 entry club race to a 100 entry club race. And again, Dan can attest to that. Brandon and Paulie can attest as annoyed racers. When you get to a certain level, you need more race directors. You need more track guys on. You need better tech. Guys are going to start cheating. No one's going to cheat in a 5 go-kart to win race, or at least not a lot. But there's a lot more cheating that happens in a 30 to 40 go-kart race. Right, Brandon?
Yeah, true.
I know.
Isn't that the nature of a racer, though? Just trying to find every possible advantage.
Definitely a little bit of both. I mean, Paulie, right? You'll wreck a guy for a 5 go-kart or 50 go-kart win a race, right?
I'd wreck if I was by myself.
No, in all jokes, there's just like I said, guys, the last thing with the show and what we'll sign off on is just I everything we're doing, we're all in, spreading ourselves as far as we can. And there's so much more that I want to do and that we want to do with KC to continue to grow this sport and keep getting more and more guys in. And obviously, like Ricky said, be able to stay in, whether it's the streaming, whether it's doing our weekly podcast to talk, which this obviously is a lot more internal, much less external, of getting new eyes in, the streams, the funny videos, the clips or whatever. That stuff hopefully gets new guys in, and this stuff hopefully is more informative. But since we're talking to a lot of club racers and national racers and regional racers and industry members through this weekly show, I want to drive home, as smart as it is that we call a spade when we do have stuff that pops up that really doesn't need to be there, or stuff that is, whatever. I think it's important that, we also talk that there is so much room for potential with this sport. And I end up getting calls and texts about it every week now as we're getting bigger, that we all are both responsible for making it bigger, but we all benefit from making it bigger. So as we sign off, again, thanks as always, Brandon and Paulie, for hanging and talking a little bit. Dan and Jason, thank you guys so much for joining us here. Dan, thank you so much.
Thanks,
First time on the show.
Yeah, thanks for bringing me back in.
Yeah. So it's awesome. Great. Like I said, next week, guys, I know for sure we got John Seglem, who is working with Brandon. They've got a really cool deal they're starting to push together. So shameless plug for Brandon Jarsh Crack Racing and Brandon's deal. They've got a lot of guys. Brandon, you said you got 16 guys for the first club race you're doing?
Yeah, something like that.
Woo!
Yeah, it's good.
Sounds like a pay raise for me.
I don't think so. It's taking off really good. I'm excited.
Yeah, so it should be cool. So lots of good things, lots of stuff to be excited about, guys. Don't get drawn too much into the negativity. It's easy to get drawn down, and it's easy to, again, get upset when stuff in the sport doesn't go the way that we want to. But it's important that we just as much make our voices heard when stuff goes wrong, and call that out in the proper way, in a constructive way, and be like, man, I wish you went left and you went right, to any promoter, to any shop, to any track, to any club. But to also make sure that we're still brainstorming ideas to grow it, because if what we're doing is proof, if anything else of growth in the sport's proof. I mean, the sport's in a great spot from every class, and I think the motor packages we got, to Rotax, to Rock, to 206, to Tillotson, to Miami, obviously, in a very stable position. There's a lot of positive momentum, and it has never been cheaper to market anything than it is with the age of social media and online marketing. So it can work. I'm happy to help it out. Our DMs are always open. We always try to respond to everybody that messages us, everybody that comments. I thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you guys next week. So stick with us, folks. Again, thank you so much here for tuning in. KC Happy Hour, episode 27. It's a wrap. We will see you guys next Tuesday.